before we get started and you can introduce yourself, I think I want to give a full disclosure. Nikolai is the founder of Circula, and Alex, my co-founder at 9x, was employee number 8, or
I don't remember.
yeah, like one of the first employees at Circula and built the whole operation there. So obviously, when he left to start 9x with me, I was afraid either Nikolai would hate me or potentially he would stay friend and actually would have a very insightful potential customer with us. And it was the second part. So thanks a lot, Nikolai, for the trust. Maybe could you start with a little introduction about who you are, what you do, what Circula is, and the kind of metrics you can share, maybe.
So I'm Nikolai, I'm 34, I'm Russian. I came to Germany when I was 1 year old from the Soviet Union. And I always wanted to do art. So actually I was thinking about architecture. And then I was afraid if I don't make it as an architect, I will go just study business. So I studied business. And during the studies, I realized, man, I want to be an entrepreneur. Because for me, the idea of building something is so creative and so fulfilling. And so I came to Berlin, was working in different companies. And I was working at FinLeap, so like Project A, just in FinTech. And around 8 years ago with my co-founder, we started to think about like, what do we want to do? And we thought, let's change the world and make expense management great. And basically around 7.5 years ago, we founded the company. And back then, basically, like companies in Germany were running with spreadsheets, all their expense management. And we had a bumpy start. We had to pivot. We almost went bankrupt. We had to lay off people, then COVID came, and selling travel expenses during COVID really, really sucks. But somehow we still made it, whatever you want to call it. We have now 2,000 companies using our product across Germany. We have roughly 160,000 users. And what I'm proud of is that we are now awarded by G2 as the leading solution for the mid-market globally and have a very high NPS. So in a nutshell, what do we do? Expense management, credit cards, and benefits in one modular suite.
Thanks a lot, Nikolai. So this talk is the only talk where we will not go into details about the tools you use because you yourself don't use most of the tools. You're not a no-code user.
Yeah.
But actually what I want to discuss, which I think is very interesting because we don't hear a lot about this, is what it meant for you to actually see the transition of your teams becoming automation and no-code builders, and then what the impact was for the organization. So maybe can you give us an overview of the evolution, let's say high level of like the company has been going through over the past 3 years, what was the business evolution and the transformation the company has gone through, and then we go into the automation, but just in terms of metrics.
In the last 3 years? Or?
The last 3 years there.
Yeah, so in the last 3 years, we went from pre-Series A and 1 million ARR to now north of 10 million ARR. We grew from 35 people to 120 people. We opened markets, we closed markets, and I think like during that time and coming from like a situation of despair because we were not having like big budgets, we were also asking ourselves like what can be done with relatively little resources. And back then, I think Alex, were you still around 3 years ago? No, okay. But basically, like the thing is, like what I was very lucky, like Alex he was also my best man at my wedding. Now he's not visiting me anymore. But basically, he was our head of operations. And we were really lucky to have Alex as our head of operations because he had a real talent to grow people. And basically back then, before he did like his training with Le Wagon and started to go down this track, Alex was really, really good at developing interns. So because back then I was like the founders doing the sale, my co-founder was doing the coding, we had a few people, but on the go-to-market side, it was for quite a long time, it was mostly me. And Alex was taking care of everything else on the operations side. And we basically didn't have the budgets to like hire a lot of full-time people. That's why we always were going for smart interns. And Alex was really good at training them. So that's like our operations team became our internal kind of incubator for talented people. And then over time, we started to realize like what could be done with automation and with like low code and no code. Yeah.
And what were, as the company grew from 1 million ARR to roughly 10 million ARR, did you 10x the size of the team, or how did the size of the team evolve?
Yeah, so like generally speaking, we are still growing quite capital efficient, especially if you compare us to our competitors. Like basically we were scaling headcount on the sales side, engineering side, operations now is not a small team, but it's because we do a few things on like the whole receipt auditing for our customers, but the core operations team was always relatively small. And I think the one thing that we really care about is talent density. Maybe some of you read the book from Reed Hastings about like the culture of Netflix. And he's always like an advocate of talent density. And we were always asking ourselves, like, how can we have like a set of really, really smart people and then give them more and more responsibility? And basically, this is what Alex was really good at, actually giving the interns, like all the interns had to start in customer support and do like the things which are not so sexy. But when we saw that people are smart, we were giving them more and more responsibilities when it comes to marketing side, the CRM, to things on the product side, research. And basically, this was the starting point. And on the operations side, we are still quite a lean organization. Yeah, so we don't try to fix it with headcount.
And where does this all fit into no code and AI? What's the link?
I mean, when Alex started telling me that he's doing all of this with you, I was interested. I also wanted to give you like support in starting your business, and I knew that if I look at people also here in the audience, Manuel and Hüsnü, two of our colleagues who were or are in operations, basically I saw how they evolved and as people, as young professionals. And I thought that if you think about like the typical business dude after studies, he comes, he can do PowerPoint and Excel, and this is already quite a lot, right? I mean, spreadsheets, you always have to do it for fundraising, sales, whatever. And basically what we were thinking with Alex and with you is that like with no-code, you can really supercharge the people, right? Because they can get much, much more stuff done. And this was the starting point when Alex was starting to do also a lot of trainings, internal, educating the people, having like courses, people were coming and doing like showing like what they learned and demoing stuff. And I also had in the conversation with Alex, because for me personally, it was also a little bit of like an epiphany, because he was asking like, how do I position this? Like, how can this become also relevant for like the management, for the founders and for the people? And I think like what I would also like to share with you today, maybe as a takeaway, is if you work in an organization or if you're selling to organizations, like anything around low code or no code, like how to approach it if your buyer persona, me, is clueless, because I have no clue about no code. Really, I have nothing in disclosure. I'm not so smart and I don't have much, I didn't have much bandwidth to go into this. But basically, like the conversation with Alex was quite interesting, because what I told them and what I remembered is that there's a guy called Naval Ravikant. Some of you might know him. He's a prolific angel investor, Uber, Twitter, and all that stuff. And he became quite famous a few years ago about like because of a tweet storm that he created. I think it's something like how to get rich without getting lucky. I'm not sure whether this was the title, but the idea was that he was talking about how can you apply knowledge in the tech world to actually create abundance and value. And the one thing that he was saying is there are two types of people in tech, the sellers and the builders. I'm not a builder. I can sell a little bit. But I thought if you are working in business and you're not a product manager or engineer, somehow in the marketing or in the commercial side, you always have to sell, persuade, convince, present. And I thought if you can build then he says if you can sell and build, you're unstoppable. And this is when I was thinking what transformation it is for people when they start to actually be able to code stuff. Because like, I mean, engineers are perceived sometimes as not gods, but like there's like these magicians in Berlin and everywhere. And I thought that if you are like a young person and you can learn those stuff, you are going to be much, much more equipped to solve problems down the line. And this was something that was quite inspiring. And from there, we took it also.
And one thing that I find interesting is like when you take the example, for example, of Manuel, who's here, he studied most likely as an intern in operations, and now he's like head of operations. And you have other cases of people like this who not only they just become builders, but they're also now part of your leadership team.
Yeah.
How much of an impact does it have? Do you see difference between these people and the people who just took the normal path or the career path and never went into the builder phase?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is if you work in tech, you have to have empathy for what engineers and product people are creating. And if you experience it firsthand, you are a better problem solver. And I think you are better equipped to think in systems and in processes and it's really like you're training a muscle. And I think that I think it's inspiring also to see that, because one of our values is growth mindset. I think most of us are growth mindset that are here, and I think the idea, if you're challenging yourself to learn something new, and this whole domain, if you look at like the demos that Bubble is doing, it's not trivial, right? It's quite complex, and it's a rabbit hole that you go down. And I think it's interesting to see when we have conversations with our leadership team, because we have a CFO, we have a chief revenue officer, we have Manuel, our head of operations. And if we come up with problems or discussions in the meetings, like what would happen more often if it was like more like the old school people is like, they would have to think about it, you would have to create a concept or whatnot. And I remember last year or 2 years ago, we had this conversation like, how we need now a BI analyst because marketing and HR, they need support. And then actually my co-founder, he was quite direct and said, no, we don't need anyone because we set up Metabase in a way that anyone can actually do SQL queries and do those things. And I think there were actually also situations in the management meeting when Manuel was just doing the queries and figuring things out on the fly. And I think this is the type of things that happens if you're equipped and you know like your competencies, you are like widening the circle of your competence, and you can just get much, much more stuff done. So I think this is exciting and also surprising then for people in the leadership team to see what a young person can achieve and how much they are supercharged to actually leverage the data, the processes, the insights that a company is creating via API calls and whatnot you can do. Yeah.
And if we take the examples of Manuel started as an intern, became head of operations, so that's one great example. What's the usual track of when you get your interns, they've been doing a bit of customer success, they've shown you that, they have talent, and then you decide to develop them. What's the next track afterwards?
I would say it's quite individual, and we have a few of those success stories. One, for example, is Orla. She started as an intern. She was working in operations. She was also doing the low-code, no-code classes, and she built something really awesome. For example, like 2 years ago, I think, we were asking ourselves, do we need like a customer, or how do you call it? Customer success management platform, basically, to have insights about the intent of our users and like also to predict churn and all that stuff. And we looked at Planhead and gain sites, and it's all like 30, 50, 60K a year. And then basically I think Manuel came with the idea, hey, why don't we build something ourselves? And I was thinking like, man, really? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And basically then I don't know how long it took, maybe 1, 2, 3 months. And then basically Orla came back, that was just an intern. And she built it with Airtable as the base. And she integrated data from HubSpot, from our backend, from from Metabase, and from like our NPS tool. And suddenly we had a health score, and she was showing us like where do we have risks of churn and these type of things. And like for us, basically the idea was, and something that also my co-founder always says in German, Appetit kommt beim Essen. Basically the idea that you have to go on this journey and then serendipity will bring you somewhere. And the typical route would be we check the vendors, we buy one of the softwares, we are not getting enabled, and then 2 years we churn and everything is shit. But actually we went down this track to build like this customer health platform ourselves to be much more educated about what we want. And then we decided we don't need Gainsight, we just do it ourselves.
And I don't think you're not saying here that every time you need something you should build it in no code, but I think if you start building it, then you know what you need, and then you can go and pick the right solution when it's time to go into the more.
I think it's also a good point. I think similar to anything new, exciting, and like for a man with a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And I think this is like a slippery road where it's super important that just because I can do no code or low code, I should not look at everything and say like, well, how can I automate this? And I think this is also quite important, where you have to give the people space and autonomy to figure things out, but it has to be also guided. And also, like one thing which is important if you think about like a founder and why do I care about it is, I mean, the first thing which I could talk about more about is like this enablement of people to grow much, much faster personally. But on the other hand, top line, right? Because you want to improve unit economics and make more money. And that's why it's good if you have this conversation with the people that can do low code, no code, and tell them like, this is like for us strategically important. Can you figure out things and how to make the business grow faster?
And there are other examples maybe of people who are maybe went more into this like top line, like in marketing or in, I don't know, lead generation sales. Are you also implementing things there that are driven by automation?
Yeah, this is another good example. We had Kieran, a colleague that joined, also an intern. I think it was also your intern, Alex, right? Nice. And basically he started as an intern, he was doing stuff, and then basically we had like a lot of need in marketing, and he started to work in the marketing department. And this is also an example where we tried multiple attempts when it comes to lead enrichment, because if you think about top line, if you think about B2B, like one of the big problems is where do I get like really good leads to work for the sales reps? And this was an area that is super sensitive to any B2B company, and they have a lot of vendors like Apollo and Ample Market and others, but for Germany, for example, it's not always easy to find like good data. And this is something where, for example, Kieran was working on building like this enrichment capabilities into our CRM, and also like a lead scoring. And like the last state is that we are now using Clay, maybe some of you know, for the enrichment of our customer, of the company data. And I think, Alex, you said it's quite impressive what he has built. And it was interesting to see the development of Kieran, because like some people get hooked on the idea of low code, no code. And like, I think it's great if people stay curious and learn. And basically, I think Alex was also telling that quite quickly, Kieran was coming back with solutions or like things that he built that were even hard to grasp for Alex. And you really, really started to progress quick. And this was also cool to see. And yeah, in marketing, we're using it quite a lot now. Yeah.
And I guess at the size you are now, you are also bringing in like seasoned leaders, like top management, C-levels. And when they come and they see this kind of culture, automation culture, like are they surprised? What's their reaction when they join?
Yeah, I would say so. I think so, because especially like I think we have a VP marketing from France, and I think in France you have like generally like a quite demand gen and techie ecosystem, and that's why for him not everything was a surprise, but he was super happy to actually find someone in marketing ops that has such capabilities, because the alternative would be to hire freelancers, which are quite expensive for these type of projects, and this way Kieran is doing the work of three. And definitely quite surprised. And I think what's important is it's not just their capabilities, it's more also their mindset, which is positively surprising to the leadership people that I was mentioning, that it's really like this can-do mentality, because like once you solve one problem, a second problem, you're becoming like much more confident in your capabilities. And yeah, you're rarely confronted with like challenges you cannot really somehow get done. And this is something which they really like. Yeah.
And what do you do internally to make sure this culture, this high agency and this mindset of building and automating gets spread throughout the organization? Do you personally do some things, or you let the boys?
I try not to intervene. I think Manuel is doing a good job, and also the collaboration with 9X is quite strong. We had like many courses that were conducted with 9X basically to train our colleagues, and I think we had sometimes 10, 15, 20 people attending. And what's also interesting is that for us, like the backbone when it comes to low code, no code is the operations team, and we look at them similar to what Project A was telling about, like the SWAT team, and they go to people, they go to marketing, they go to sales, they go to basically trying to finance and try to find like what are the issues that could be solved, and does it make sense? Is there a business case behind it? Does it actually make the boat go faster? And then they basically do it. But what's positive is that like during those courses, we don't only have like the typical suspects, the usual suspects, the operations people attending. We also have people from marketing, from HR, from finance, from partnership, from product, from design, I think, coming. And this is how you are basically making sure that people have the ability to get to know more about what's out there, and also have like basic concepts that they grasp, and to have like more empathy again for engineering and the product that we are building.
And for you, it's an important thing you're setting a SaaS. It is important for you that everybody understands technology in the company.
Yeah, I think so. I think that it never can harm. Yeah.
When it comes to spreading the culture, so you started with a bunch of interns, then they start getting into the different departments, and they go and start building there. Do you see everybody ends up being a no-code operator, and then everybody can build? Is it only a select amount of people that can do more advanced stuff? How do you see things evolving in the company?
In our company?
Yeah.
I think that they're like the starter courses that 9x is providing, and there I think it's something that
I like how you're pushing it.
no, but basically, I think it's good if anyone has access to it and can learn. But I think it's also fair to say that in the end, like you have also to be smart to actually make use of the software, and it's intellectually challenging and not something for everyone. And there are people that have different talents and strengths, and that's why I think we want to, like, we have a learning and development budget, and anyone can do it. Anyone can go and do like an API course or other things. But like what we more often than not see is that the people that are hooked actually are mostly from the operations team. And I think that like we also have this discussion with Manuel that we are now a company of 120 people. We are revising our target operating model and asking ourselves like, what's the role and vision of operations? And I mean, like in our case, operations is like the catch-all for things that don't work, kind of. They're having to take care of a lot of stuff. And now the question for us is like, how will operations in our organization evolve? And Manuel is working on the vision for the department, but I think that what's clear for us is that they are perceived as the SWAT team. So basically, like if things don't work, it's better to look at them as a business partner to solve things. So I think it's good if every department has people that are curious, but definitely there's going to be a spike in operations and marketing, I would say. RevOps also, yeah.
If you look back at your organization now, how different would it be if you didn't have this automation culture? Let's say, we never go that way with Alex and you never get started with automation. What would be the normal trajectory that the company, like, how different would it be, you would say?
I think it's hard to assess. I think it's hard to tell how much we can attribute in terms of growth or revenue per se to this whole domain. But I think in terms of culture, it would be a less pleasant place to work and less exciting. And this is also like what the C-level, like the people that joined us are telling is that like this can-do mentality, this growth mindset, like this eagerness to collaborate and fix problems. I think this is exciting. Like I think that operations is like a real driver, and you could say like heart of the organization, and perceived also in service always as the most collaborative people to work with. And if we didn't have like this low-code, no-code culture, I wouldn't know whether we would have developed so many effective problem solvers relatively quickly, and have like this mindset and mentality. I remember when I was studying, people would say like, go to McKinsey and BCG for 2-3 years, you will become a great problem solver, which is true. I think conceptually you're learning a lot there. I have never been there, not smart enough, but basically I think that like if you worked in a startup in operations for 1 or 2, 3 years and you've learned low-code, no-code, you have become a really good problem solver. And I think it's just, again, coming to the idea of talent density, enablement of people, it's excited to be around such problem solvers.
Yeah, and I guess it also gives the people more mobility within the organization.
Yeah. I think it's also an interesting way also to test, like, what are you interested in? And I think that product managers, like being a product manager, I think it can be a very fulfilling and impactful role. And I hope to see that we are going to have more people, for example, also that have started with low code and no code, found their excitement to be a builder, and then progress into product management, for example.
You have some example of this already, or
yeah, with Orla, that she built like this healthcare, like not healthcare, the customer health score base, and she basically started to be interested in 2 tracks. She wanted to go either into BI or product, and we saw the talent in her. And I think the good thing is that working in low code, no code can also expose in the organization to the leaders who actually has the capabilities, the grits, and like the horsepowers to do product, because there are many people that call themselves product managers, but there are not that many great product managers. And I think that's basically, it was great for us to see what she can do and then also encourage her to go down this track. And now she's a junior product manager. she just released a big feature, which is a dashboard which we have embedded, white labeled with Metabase into our UI. And it was a natural transition because previously she was working on low-code, no-code projects. She was working with our internal data, and this was a really cool use case that she has built quite independently. And yeah, so we have those examples.
And do you have even some people who go into tech, or that's the...
I mean, you don't know my
Chinese or-
co-founder, but you would say no. No, but not yet. But maybe. I think that yeah, I think that like with other founders, it could be possible because you have also, I forgot the name, which built completely, I think, on low-code, no-code. Like we have my co-founder, my CTO Roman, he's very opinionated and very proud of tech and engineering. You only hire senior engineers, and they have had their mistakes done somewhere else and come to our organization, blah, blah, blah. But basically, that's why his kingdom won't be touched by low-code or no-code, but he appreciates it a lot because he sees that instead of having internal engineers having to be allocated to internal projects, basically with low-code, no-code, we can solve quite a lot of things.
So you say, like, even though he's a purist when it comes to software development, he's actually appreciating to have a no-code, local people doing the
Absolutely.
the dirty work for him.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is also something, not sure whether we had this conversation, that I think it's a good pitch also maybe for you to take away, like when you have this discussion internally, like how much you can actually relieve the internal operations or organization because of the empowerment of people to do like those type of automations by themselves. Yeah.
Super interesting.
Employee satisfaction? Yes. I have to think like our ENPS was, I think, ENPS was 67 or 64. And I think in operations, Manuel, do you have a good ENPS? Yeah? Nice. Yeah, I think it works definitely because I think that you, as a young, or not a young person, generally as a professional, you want to feel that you create impact and enabled, autonomous. And I think it's like if you see that you can solve problems, I think this is like creating a lot of joy. To give you an example, Manuel, our head of operations, he is now currently setting up our data warehouse, right? So he basically over the last, well, I don't know, 6-8 weeks was jumping into this area. And like he's a very intelligent person, so he could do it. But I think like this whole no-code, how you say, journey has prepared him for going down this route. And now he is leading a team of 20 people. And on the side, he's basically setting up this data warehouse, and I think this is very fulfilling if you actually get stuff done. And that's why I would say we didn't run an analysis on the impact of no-code on ENPS, but I would say it's significant. We have quite structured onboarding. The onboarding itself does not per default has low-code or no-code in it, as far as I know. Does it, Manuel? Fuck, okay. Yeah, so we have it. Yeah, for sure. Like I think that, and I think like having access like to those libraries or those courses that you can also do on demand is a good first way to start. And then obviously you can also approach other colleagues. So yeah, apparently it's quite formalized. Yeah.
I think the majority of your employees take or like entry-level course.
Yeah.
And then some of them get selected by Manuel and the team, and then when they find the talent, then they put them in the more advanced one.
Exactly.
But everybody takes the simple version.
Yeah, basically, like we spot the ones that seem to be more eager and maybe more higher potential, and then we give them more. Yeah.
All right. Then, if you don't have any questions, I have a last one. Nikolai, if you want people to leave here with one learning, what would it be? One thing that you can give, especially for younger founders.
For other founders?
Yeah.
I think next to building a successful business that is financially successful, the joy of building a company is developing people and see how they grow. And I think that I was positively surprised about which influence this whole domain can have on the development of our people. And I think this is like something that I personally think you cannot directly measure as an ROI or like a financial KPI, but it's even more important, I think.